Today I'm here to talk about some variations on the minor scale. Now, I said last time this is a break from chord work, but as we'll find, the chords and scales are in fact intimately connected. I'm going to start with a little bit of revision. So far we've become familiar with the natural minor scale, consisting of intervals of a major second, a minor third, a perfect fourth, a perfect fifth, a minor sixth, a minor seventh, and an octave. That is a sequence of a tone, a semitone, a tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. We've seen that this sequence of tones and semitones is in fact the same as that of the relative major scale. Simply starting and finishing on a different note. It follows that the set of chords produced by harmonising the natural minor scale are the same as the chords of the harmonised major scale, simply in a different sequence. When it came to the crucial 5-1 progression, or perfect cadence in minor keys, we found that the harmonisation of the scale gave us chords of 5 minor or 5 minor 7 and 1 minor or 1 minor 7. In the key of A minor, this gives us E minor to A minor, E minor 7th to A minor, E minor 7th to A minor 7th, all perfectly valid minor key cadences and perfectly palatable chord sequences. However, the effect of this cadence is somehow weaker than the corresponding major key perfect cadence, and the reason for this can be found in the movement from the third of the 5 chord to the root of the 1 chord. In the case of A minor, this movement is from a G natural to A. Whereas in the case of A major, the movement is from a G sharp to an A. Classical composers and scholars decided they wanted to retain this effect in the minor key perfect cadence, and this can be achieved by replacing the 5 minor or minor 7th chord with a 5 major or dominant 7th chord. Thus, in the key A minor, giving us the progression E major to A minor, or E7 to A minor. And there we can hear that semitone movement from the third of the E to the root of the A has been reinstated. This of course means that we now have a note in the chord sequence which doesn't appear in the key signature and so doesn't form part of the natural minor scale. So let's consider what happens if we change this note in the scale itself. Well, looking at the scale of A natural minor, we find that the G natural appears at note 7, that is the minor 7th. Changing this note to a G sharp gives us a minor scale with a major 7th in it. And this is the scale which we call the harmonic minor scale. As well as allowing us to play the major or dominant 7th 5 chord, this scale now has implications for other chords of the harmonised scale. For example, if we played the 1 chord as a 7th chord, it would now change from A minor 7th to A minor with a major 7th. However, that's a topic we'll be returning to in a later session. Just now I'm going to stick with the scale itself, because when we play this scale, we can hear there's something slightly odd about it. If we compose a melody using this scale, eerie, perhaps a kind of oriental sound, something not entirely Western European. And the reason for this is we've now broken the pattern of tone and semitone intervals which make up all the regular diatonic scales and modes. We now have a scale that consists of tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, minor third, that is 1.5 tones, and then a semitone. Our hypothetical classicists weren't entirely comfortable with using this scale as a basis for composing melodies, so the next step was to try and look at a way to restore the pattern of tone and semitone intervals to this scale. And the way to do that is to alter one more note of the scale, and that is to take the minor sixth and replace it with a major sixth. This gives us a scale now, once again, all tone and semitone intervals, that is. Tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. It doesn't end there because this scale now has its own problem. We can see that it differs in just one single note, that is the minor third, from a major scale. All the other intervals are the same as those of the major scale, so we have major second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and octave. So in some ways, as a minor scale, this scale is not quite minor enough. And the solution to this problem was to say that when we play this scale in an ascending form, we play the major sixth and major seventh. But when we play it in a descending form, the sixth and seventh intervals revert to the minor sixth and seventh, that is to say, the same form as the familiar natural minor scale. So now we have a scale with different ascending and descending forms. And this is the scale which we call the melodic minor scale. Now, if you're using this melodic minor scale to construct a melody, you could stick strictly to the principle that when the melody is going up, you use the sharpened or major intervals for the sixth and seventh, and when the melody is descending, you use the minor versions of the sixth and seventh intervals. Alternatively, you could take a more flexible approach and just treat all the notes of the ascending and descending forms as being available to you at all times, in effect giving you a scale of 9 notes instead of the usual 7. And of course your choice of chords to accompany the melody would be to some extent dictated by the choice of whether you were using the major or minor sixth and seventh in the tune. Harmonising this scale will of course expand the range of chords and chord voicings available to you, since you'll be adding all the possible chords of the harmonisation of the ascending form of the melodic minor scale to the familiar chords of the descending form, which is of course the same as the natural minor scale, and will have the same set of harmonised chords. We'll be looking at that in a little more detail in our later session on chord substitutions. Now, if you're a student of jazz music, you will find that jazz players tend to ignore the descending form of the melodic minor scale, that is the reversion to the natural minor scale, and play the melodic minor scale using the same pattern, ascending and descending. And this form of the scale is sometimes referred to as the jazz melodic minor for this very reason. I'd now like to conclude this session with a brief look at another type of scale, and that is the blues scale. Now, one of the characteristics of the blues as a musical style is a kind of tonal ambiguity in that it is neither major nor minor. So to find a scale for building melodies or improvising solos in the blues, it's useful to have a scale that includes both the major and minor thirds. There are a few alternative variations on the concept of a blues scale available for you to practice. I'm sure you can find examples in the literature or on the internet. I'm just going to show you one version, which is the one I favour. And for this scale, we begin with an interval of a minor third. So from the tonic note we play a minor third, then go to the major third, and then move chromatically, that is in semitone steps, to the fifth. So we have a perfect fourth, an augmented fourth or diminished fifth, and a perfect fifth. And then we conclude with a minor seventh and the octave. And repeating in the upper octave. Now, I'm no blues guitarist, but if I play around with the notes of this scale, I can make a fairly convincingly bluesy sound. And that concludes our discussion of the alternative forms of the minor scale. In the next session, we're going to be taking a look at a new type of chord and a new type of scale to go with it. That is the diminished chord and the diminished scale.